Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Today we'll be continuing our series which critiques each one of the major battles in Star Wars. We've already covered Rogue One and some of the original and prequel series. Please check these videos out because these videos are taking a huge toll on my love of Star Wars and destroying my soul. Today we'll be looking at the controversial Force Awakens, a movie a lot of the older fans seem to hate. Now, for all those newer fans who have joined the ranks of the Rebellion Empire or the Resistance and the First Order, this might be a little bit confusing. Standing by itself, The Force Awakens is by no means a bad movie. It has a pretty good storyline, exotic locations, interesting characters, and all sorts of powerful feels. But of course, The Force Awakens isn't a standalone film. It's more of a sequel, the 7th movie in the best franchise in cinematic history. The problem that many fans had was that the film didn't really feel like just a sequel, it felt like a remake or a reboot of the original Star Wars films. When I came out of the theaters after watching Episode 7, I felt slightly cheated. But of course that didn't stop me from going back and watching it a second and third time. One of the most glaring examples of rehashing the original trilogy was the creation of Starkiller Base. Instead of being a man-made Death Star, this time the superweapon was built around a planet. And naturally, when space Nazis build a giant superweapon, it needs to be destroyed. Today we'll be focusing on the Battle of Starkiller Base and everything wrong with it. The battle begins once the Resistance finds out that the First Order is preparing to fire Starkiller and destroy their base on Yavin 4. Dakar. Luckily, Finn has provided the blueprints of the planet for the Resistance, and they figure out that they must destroy something called the thermal oscillator, which contains the weapon's energy. Once the containment field was taken down, the entire weapon would be destroyed. But in order for the Resistance to access the surface of the planet, they need Han Solo to destroy the shield generator. Again, what complicates the scenario is that unlike Scarif and Endor, they don't have a way to sneak past the shield. Han Solo kind of has his senior citizen moment and thinks he can get past the shield because
their shields have a fractional refresh rate, keeps anything traveling slower than light speed from getting through.
We're making our landing approach at light speed?
That's right, Finn. They're gonna make their landing approach at light speed. And of course, Han Solo somehow pulls it off. Now, there are several problems with the scenario. 1. How does Han know exactly what the refresh rate is? Even if they are moving at light speed, they have to time it exactly so that the ship goes through the shield when it's not active. Then there's the problem of how much space the Millennium Falcon actually has to decelerate from light speed. The Millennium Falcon has one of the fastest hyperdrives in the galaxy and can easily travel faster than the speed of light, which is around 671 million miles per hour. If Starkiller Base is similar to Earth and the shield is a little bit higher than the lower atmosphere, then the distance from the shield to the ground should be around 10 to 30 miles. Even if the Falcon doesn't come in at a perpendicular angle and comes at a more parallel angle, it still would have less than 50 to 150 miles to decelerate from 671 million miles per hour. Now, I don't really know how the Millennium Falcon's retro thrusting works. I don't really know how the inertia compensator works inside the ship, but this whole situation seems highly unlikely. And in the actual scene, it looks like the Millennium Falcon emerges only a few hundred meters from a mountain. The only logical explanation that I can have for this is that the Millennium Falcon is as magical as Miss Frizzle's sentient school bus. Also, Han Solo might be force sensitive. Look at this no-look shot. That's not luck, that's supernatural. Also, look at Han throw this full-grown man several meters into the air into the mouth of a Rathtar. I doubt a senior citizen could be that strong. After they capture Captain Phasma, Han and company manage to lower the shields. The rebels, the Resistance, immediately detect this, and Poe Dameron's Red and Blue Squadron line up for an attack. The problem here is that the Resistance have only temporarily lowered down the shields. They didn't destroy the shield generator like they did on Endor, and I find it hard to believe that a base as large as Starkiller doesn't have backup shield control stations or another set of shield controls at the main control hub. If anything, the First Order should have detected that the shields were down way before the Resistance and brought them back up immediately. And even if the shields took a really long time to reboot and the X-Wings got through, the First Order should have already been at full alert and ready to repel any attack once the shields were down. Anyway, the Resistance attack on the shield oscillator is futile. Their weapons can't penetrate the building's thick walls. This seems like poor planning on the part of the Resistance. It's true they had very little time to formulate any kind of plan, but that's really no excuse because they had blueprints for the base. Why didn't the Resistance at least bring Y-Wings? The X-Wing is a terrific ship, but it's more like a multi-role fighter with no specialty, and it's a poor substitute for a true bomber. Luckily, Chewie has some explosives and the ground team plants them inside the facility. Unfortunately, due to the ridiculous lack of handrails in Starkiller Base, Han Solo falls off a narrow catwalk to his death. Chewie, who is furious with the lack of safety regulations at Starkiller Base, shoots Kylo with a bowcaster bolt, which somehow doesn't knock him off his feet or tear a fist-sized hole through him. I mean, seriously, look at what a bowcaster normally does to a person. Little Emo Ren must be very strong in the Force. Chewie manages to detonate the explosives and it damages one of the outer walls of the building. Which makes me kind of wonder, why didn't they just plant the explosives in the actual oscillator in the first place? Is that too much to ask? Black Leader and the remnants of Red and Blue Squadron make a last-minute run, which is kind of like a trench run. But like I said in our analysis of the Battle of Yavin, going inside a trench actually makes no sense, because one of the most important things in a dogfight is maneuverability, and once you enter a trench, you lose all maneuverability and become a sitting duck.
Oh good, I can't maneuver!
Although, to give Poe credit, at least this time, he leaves a few fighters outside the trench to cover their approach, a tactic that would have probably saved Gold Squadron during the Battle of Yavin 4. It's that very tactic of covering from above used by Han Solo that saved Luke Skywalker. Poe manages to slip through a tiny crack in the wall and then pulls the Death Star 2 with some terrific flying skills. I also think he's Force sensitive too. And that's that, an extremely predictable ending that everyone in the theater saw the moment Starkiller Base appeared on screen. In the end, it's much harder to defend The Force Awakens because unlike Rogue One, it didn't try to do anything new. It just did the same thing over again. In my book, that's called copying. Now, I understand the last time someone tried to do something different with a Star Wars film, we got the controversial prequel trilogy. So now Disney wants to play it safe. But if being safe means repeating storylines, then I'm not interested. I'd rather hear cringy lines about sand any day of the week. Let's hope the rest of the new trilogy tries to do something different. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to check out the rest of this series of everything wrong with Star Wars battles. We've made a playlist. We'll link that in the end screen and in the description below. Thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.